What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the RPS Around the Rim NBA DFS show. I am back, and I'm your host, JSU, and I got my two boys back with me. First up, my man Hoop, handling the cash stuff over at RPS. Hoop, what's going on, man?
Yeah, not too much. It was an exciting, first day of the NBA playoffs yesterday, and everything was building up to that last game. The last game was great, and then, man, maybe I'm a little biased because I was basically all in on Porzingis, but that ejection just kind of killed the mojo. We always joke about going, what is it, Tony, 6 to midnight? Like that was like midnight to 6, real quick. Not only for my DFS lineups, but just for the game in general. It was just, man, it was such a good game, and then that happens, a soft ejection. Kind of ruined it, but overall, I mean, it's just great to have NBA playoffs back. Just to me, like I said, it's my favorite time of year when the NBA playoffs are going, and we get 4 new games to talk about today, so it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I got pulled from yesterday's show, by one of the bosses over here. Just yanked me out of the starting lineup. I was ready to come in and give all my thoughts, and I had one hot take.
You had to focus on the live final. Like, you got to do what you got to do.
Let me give my hot take first, because I wanted to say this live before the game started, but I'm going to drop it right now. So I think the 2 best teams in the entire NBA are actually playing, and we saw them play late last night, and it's the Dallas Mavericks versus the Clippers. That was my hot take.
You think the Dallas Mavericks are the second best team?
I do. And what I'll say about that is the Dallas Mavericks and the Clippers, they have 2 of the best coaches in the entire NBA. Rick Carlisle is the most underrated coach, in my opinion, that no one talks about. And then Luka and Porzingis as a combo is one of the best 2 combos. They're right up there with Paul George and Kawhi. I'd put Paul George and Kawhi above them, and I'd put their entire team, the Clippers, above them. But I think the Mavericks are, in my opinion, 2 or 3. I put them 2 on top, and I think we're going to have a really fun finals. If the NBA doesn't steal it from us, by the way, by just throwing out Porzingis on a soft call like that, I'm with Hoop. That killed a bunch of my good lineups that I had going. I think on FanDuel, I had Porzingis locked, 100% lock, and just it ruined a bunch of my lineups. But let's turn it over to my guy who you had to interject. Big D. I mean, Big T. What's up, man?
I mean, I don't even know how to respond from you saying the Dallas Mavericks are the second best team in basketball. Like, what?
I mean, who's better, the Celtics, Giannis? I mean, come on, give me a better team. Tell me the East has a better team than the Mavericks. Please, try and tell me that. I mean,
the West has plenty of teams better than the Mavericks, too. Like,
who?
The Mavs? Like, are you serious?
Who? Yeah, who? Come on, give me someone with 2. Give me someone.
Everybody? Like Houston, OKC, like
Houston. Hot and cold Houston.
Lakers,
they crumble in the playoffs.
Everybody's better.
The Lakers are looking terrible. You said they're going to lose to Portland.
Yeah, Portland's better than Dallas too. Everyone's better than Dallas. Dallas sucks. I mean, come on.
That's a terrible take. And
the second best team.
You underrate coaching in the playoffs. And
I love Carlisle, but I don't love. I'm telling you. Starting Tim Hardaway Jr., I don't love.
I'll throw this out there. He's done more with less than any coach right now coaching in the league. And that's a fact.
Yeah. He's a great coach. He might be the second best coach in the playoffs.
Yeah. I hate to open up a show and just have to have Tony's back right out of the gate, but I can't get behind the Dallas. I do agree. One thing I do agree, the duo of Luka and Porzingis might be right up there. I do agree with that. I do agree with Carlisle as the best coach, but to me, they're like a year, maybe 2 away.
To me, it's like the stars are what carry you in the playoffs, really and truly, in the NBA. Yeah. It's all about the stars.
Porzingis is soft.
Look at how all the good teams are set up, though. The Lakers have LeBron and AD. The Rockets have Harden and Westbrook. Clippers with PG and Kawhi. Every team that is up there that we're talking about, they have 2 legitimate stars, and then they have just the rest of the team, other, guys that kind of back them up a little bit. But
talk to us about this live. Combo. I mean, we got to get off your terrible take to start our show. We're going to have, Big D's going to be coming back out with this terrible take. Talk to us about the live final. How are we sitting in this live final?
I was heavy on the first game of the day yesterday. And the unfortunate part is I didn't have Mitchell. Now, the good news is only 2 guys did have Mitchell. He was 2% owned in the live final. So we're still alive. I think we're sitting 12th right now, and I've got 2 guys left to go. So it'll kind of be interesting how it shakes out. I'm obviously, we still have I can still swap my guys out. So I'm obviously not going to say who I have left, but if you were to go
how much salary do we got left? Do we got a bunch of salary left?
Yeah. If you were to go and look at my lineup, you can figure out, there's only a few guys I could have in my lineup left. But it's going to come down to the fact, can my, 2 bigger guns, can they kind of get it done? And if they can, I think I have a shot to at least be sitting pretty at the end.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah. Yep. So I had the Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray was in my core as well for RPS. So, I mean,
there's no way Dallas is beating Denver.
What? There's no way Dallas. You just got on here yesterday and we're talking about how Utah could beat Denver.
And they should have beat them. They went to overtime.
You think Utah and Denver are better than Dallas? I'm sorry.
Okay, I don't think Utah's better than. I think Utah just matches up good with Denver.
Let's get into this.
I'm back with JSU though. Now Dallas would beat up Denver, man. Denver is fraudulent as they come. I mean, they're just not a good team. And I mean, that was your whole point yesterday.
No, but
the one that started
that though. The matchups I don't like the matchups versus Utah.
I will say, man, watching that game, one last thing before we hop into the slate, man, that was some bad defense on Donovan Mitchell. I know he had it going. He definitely had it going. It's hard to slow down these stars when they have it going. But they were sagging off him and letting him get a running start to the basket. You're not going to stop him at that point. That was I mean, Torrey Craig's supposed to be this elite defender. That was bad.
No, he was called the Donovan Mitchell stopper or whatever. He didn't stop anything yesterday. I'll tell you right now, one thing, a hoop 100% on point with Donovan Mitchell. They were literally running high ball screen, pick and rolls with Donovan Mitchell, where Donovan Mitchell will get a running start from half court.
Yeah.
And the pick was already set up, and they would screen him. And he would come off and he would have a wide open 3 every time because Jokic would just sag. For some reason, the guy's got 40 points and he's still sagging in the paint and he's letting him shoot threes. And then the one time they hedge out on him, Jamal Murray gets called for a bogus block. It should have been a charge, but they need to blitz him. When a guy's on like that, you need to blitz him and get the ball out of his hands and rotate defensively. And they just didn't have it. Terrible defense. Honestly, defense by both teams was awful. Jamal Murray, another guy. How do you let that guy just come off screens and shoot the ball wide open at the end of the game? Just terrible defense. So let's move on, guys. Let's talk about this slate. We got Orlando versus Milwaukee. To start off, obviously Giannis. I mean, this is obviously a matchup. Orlando's not a team we love to take guys against because they're a little slower and everything. But this is the playoffs. If this game stays close, I mean, Giannis should crush. The game obviously has a chance of blowing out as well. But these Orlando guys, outside of Vucevic, are really cheap on Draftkings and really all over, all the sites. So what are we doing in Hoop? I'll bring it to you first. I can't imagine. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe there's one guy you like for cash, but Orlando cheap guys. Are you in on any of these guys for cash?
So I did the tiers in our premium content today, and the first thing I put in there was Orlando, Milwaukee to kind of fade that game. And then I started building some teams. I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm necessarily going to be fading that game because, I mean, some of these prices are cheap. Fultz, he's starting 4.2K. Even if it is a blowout, he can still easily get there. 4.2K. He does not need much. Another cheap guy is Brook Lopez. He's only 4.7K. He's going to have to be out there to guard Vooch. I think I have some interest in him. Was not planning on playing Giannis today. Then you pull it up and you look at the price tag, and he's only 10.5. 10.5. If the game stays close, he probably gets 70. If the game's a blowout, his floor is probably 50. Man, I have a lot of interest in him just because of that price tag. So it's more price point plays for me with guys in this game. Fultz, like I said, cheap. Brook Lopez, I kind of like, and then Giannis. There's some other cheap plays you can go to, like DJ Augustine is 3.5. Ennis is 3.4. You probably need Aaron Gordon to be out. I kind of suspect that he plays, at least in some fashion today. So there's some risk there. I think Terrence Ross is a good tournament play, 4.5K on DK. He can get hot. The guy I won't play is Vooch. Like I don't see any reason to play Vooch here. There's guys he's kind of priced up too on DK at 8.8. On FanDuel, he's 7.9. But I can't see myself playing Vooch. If I'm going to play an Orlando guy, it's going to be the cheap guys. And then, like I said, Giannis is too cheap, and I think Brook Lopez is a solid value play at 4.7K.
All right, so Tony, let's bring it to you. Is this a game where in tournaments you're going to like stacking with all these cheap prices, or are you just in the camp of this game could be a blowout? I might just maybe take a piece or two, but fade mostly.
Yeah, I mean, this slate as a whole, I think, is way harder than yesterday's just because we have a ton of stars on this slate and not a ton of – I mean, there is some value that we're going to like, but yesterday's value felt way better to me than today's value. And all of it didn't even hit yesterday. I mean, some like Royce O'Neal sucked. And there were some guys that missed, but I felt super confident yesterday with those value guys. Today, I don't know. Like, some of these guys feel okay, but, like, I'm not super in love with, like, Markelle Fultz. Like, he looks decent on paper, super cheap. I mean, even, like, James Ennis, super cheap. I do like the Brook Lopez. I like that call, though. 4.7. I kind of like going in that range a little more than the cheaper range. 4.7, he's going to have to play 30 minutes. It always comes down to if he makes shots, which I don't love with the big guy, but he shoots so good that he'll probably make shots. So I don't know. Like, I don't love this game. And some of the other games have, I think, a lot better pace, a lot better places to target. So I don't know. I'm just not in love with this game, but I do get it. I mean, there's cheap pieces. There's pieces we might need to fit stars in because I would love to try to fit 3 stars on this slate just because these stars are going to play big minutes and they're going to go off. So, I mean, I think that's the question of the day. Can we fit 3 stars or do we have to play 2? I think that's kind of what we need to work through as we go through the slate.
Yeah, I mean, I've been building all day or in the morning, and it looks to me like 2 is probably what you're going to get. 3 is really tough.
You're going to have to play like James Ennis to get the 3.
Yeah, you're going to have to play some really uncomfortable guys to get the 3, and we can talk about those guys as we get in. But, I mean, to me, I like the Brook Lopez call. One thing I will say about Brook Lopez is he is not shy. He's taken double-digit shots in every game in the bubble, except for one game against Miami where he took 9. And he's actually been shooting very good from the outside, really solid numbers. And I said before the bubble started how it's going to help shooters. Brook Lopez is a center who just likes to jack up threes. He hangs out at the three-point line a lot. He doesn't really get down low. He's not like an offensive rebounder or really a rebounder, period. He doesn't really, hustle for those. He'll just block out his guy and then move on defense. But, like, if he continues to shoot at the volume he is, and I don't see it slowing down because, like I said, he's been on fire really shooting the ball, they're going to let him shoot. And I think at 4,700, he's like the guy I'm most interested in out of this entire game. I can't argue with Giannis. Like Hoop said, the floor, it makes a ton of sense. Like, he's got 50 even in a blowout. Like, I wouldn't even be worried about it. Like, he's going to get 50 in my opinion, even if they blow this team out by 30. But if the game stays close somehow, he could easily be 70. He could easily score as much as James Harden on this slate, in my opinion.
Easily.
So I can't hate on that at all. Markelle Fultz, I'm not going to be on Markelle Fultz. I think an interesting pivot, if you really wanted to get a little different, would be DJ Augustine at 3,500. Milwaukee gives up a ton of 3-pointers because that's kind of how their defense kind of makes other teams play. They force the ball from inside out because they're just so good at shot blocking and defending the rim. So these kickouts to shooters, like I like DJ Augustine. He's going to jack up shots when he gets in there, and he's 3,500, so he's a cheap guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Augustine. I mean, yeah, as a value. I mean, like Tony said, though, it's like the value yesterday we felt good about. Jordan Clarkson, you just lock in there. We had Royce O'Neal, didn't get there, felt good. If he was on this slate again, same price tag, I'm playing him, no hesitation. I mean, Donovan Mitchell going off yesterday just kind of, slowed down all those guys. Royce O'Neal started out hot, but I mean, Mitchell had the ball in his hands the entire second half.
He missed 4 minutes in the first half because he got in foul trouble, got 3, missed the last 4 minutes. Then he got in foul trouble 3 minutes in or 2 minutes into the second half, the third quarter, and they pulled him, and he didn't play the rest of the third quarter. So, he really missed a ton of minutes.
Yeah.
I'm 100% certain, even with Donovan Mitchell going off, if he didn't miss those minutes, if he wasn't in foul trouble, he gets us 20 to 25. I wouldn't 100% easily.
Yeah, like so I'd go right back to him today if he was on this slate. And then we had OG yesterday. We felt really good about the value today. Like we talked about, you're not going to feel comfortable with it. And if you want to get 2 of these studs in, you're just going to have to take some risk. And that's where the big decision on the slate is, how much of this potential value are you willing to risk to get the studs in your lineup? We have James Harden, which we'll talk about later. Fading him is very, very risky.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we've covered most of this game. Tony, anything else before we move on?
No, I mean, just more of the same with what you guys. I mean, yesterday, even the 3K guy that ended up starting for Utah, if he was on this slate, I would consider him a little more because that 3K helps us a ton. And even if he gets 18, if I could play 5 guys today that would get me 18 for 3K, I think I would do it and play the 3 stars. Just that's how high I think of the stars today.
Yeah. I will say, though, he definitely benefited from Royce O'Neal sitting, just from a minutes perspective. The Morgan kid, he definitely benefited from that. But let's move on. We got Miami versus Indiana. This is another game where, I mean, you may not like the value, but we've got pretty much everyone besides Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Kendrick Nunn's also, in the 5K range, but he is probably not going to start. He looked terrible in the game he played, so I'm sure that Spoelstra's probably not going to run him out big minutes for the first game of the playoffs. But we've got all this value for Miami. Besides those guys, Jay Crowder is cheap. Andre Iguodala, who we expect to see maybe a few more minutes in the playoffs, he's cheap. Duncan Robinson, Goran Dragic, both guys are really cheap, 4,400 and 4,300 on DraftKings. I mean, let's start talking about this Miami value. And Hoop, I'm going to bring it back to you. We talked about the Orlando value. I mean, you got to feel a little more comfortable with this Miami value, at least in cash, right?
Yeah, certainly. And you touched on Dragic. I think he's probably the most mispriced guy on the slate. 4.4K is it's a silly price tag for him. He's going to start, Nunn's coming off the bench. Last year in the playoffs, I think he averaged close to 30 minutes per game. They like him out there in these playoff situations, veteran, solid guy. So I think at 4.4, he's the most mispriced guy on this slate, and just a great value play. The odds of him, coming out and laying a dud at 4.4 just seem very, very low to me. So I'll be high on him. Jay Crowder, like you said, 3.9, cheap price tag. Duncan Robinson, I like quite a bit. I mean, 4.3. I like these cheap guys that can hit threes on DK because you get the extra half point. Doesn't seem like a lot, but a guy like Duncan Robinson that can hit 7 of those, it goes a long way. So 4.3, that's his price, right? 4.3. Oh no, yeah, 4.3. Really like him. Yeah. Jimmy Butler and Bam, both strong plays. You touched on them, good price tags. Jimmy Butler at 7.6, too cheap to me. Bam Adebayo 7.4, too cheap. They did go ahead and kind of make the pricing a little bit softer here. So you're going to hear us say these guys, a lot of guys are too cheap, but those are the guys that stand out to me in this game. The Indiana side seems a little bit more appropriately priced. The ownership should be pretty low. I do like Brogdon at 6.8. If you're going to play Jimmy Butler or Bam, Brogdon I think is a guy on the Indiana side that I like. Aaron Holiday, good price tag. He's 4.2K, should start. Would get a bump if TJ Warren sits. I think TJ Warren does end up playing. he's also cheap on FanDuel. Holiday's only 4-1 over there, so he's definitely a guy to consider. On FanDuel, power forward is just so weak. Like, there's just not many options. You have Brow, you have Bam. I think they're going to have like a combined, I don't know, 6. Their combined ownership is going to be well over 100% between those two.
Yeah, they're going to be 60+% owned, I think, right? Like,
yeah, it's just, there's no options. I mean, you pull it up, there's literally just. Yeah.
There's nowhere to go. I mean, let's real quick. Let's pull this up right now. So I've got Anthony Davis and Bam as the top 2 guys. Sabonis is out, obviously. Then we got Covington at 7K. He'll get some ownership, yes. But I think if you go to 7K, I think you'll try and get 500 more to get the Bam, right? I would try at least. Most people will try. Kyle Kuzma at 6'3". Now, I think he plays more against Portland because I think Portland, it kind of matches up well to have him on the floor a little bit more. But 6'3" is still pretty expensive for a guy who's, streaky shooter with LeBron and AD. And then it just totally drops off. We get no Zach Collins. He's out. I mean, it's just nowhere to go.
Yeah, so on a slate where a lot of people are underpriced, the pivots at power forward are overpriced or have higher price tag, like Covington at 7K. Like, that's just about as expensive as we've seen. Kyle Kuzma at 6.3K. That's definitely just about as expensive as we've seen. So the Bam Brow combination is going to be mega popular. And, in tournaments, you always want to be looking for pivots. Tony, maybe you can help us out. Like,
you guys didn't even say my favorite power forward play.
Well, because we're going to get to him in a second, Tony.
Yeah, we'll talk about it when we get to that game. I mean, we'll get to it when we get to that.
So Tony, talk about this Miami side, because Hoop said he thinks the value is a little safer, at least for cash, these value guys. What do you think for tournaments? Like, do you like Jimmy and Bam? I think Jimmy and Bam, they're really good plays on DraftKings. Hoop noted they're softer pricing on DraftKings, but I think it's because we have so many studs. The 2 stud lineups are going to make it real hard to play Jimmy or Bam. So what are we doing if we're playing Jimmy and Bam? We could probably only get one other stud.
Yeah, so that's kind of where the slate weighs, and I don't love the value on the slate. I mean, obviously I like Dragic, so I might have to live more with the Jimmy and Bam. And the good news is they're both really good plays. I mean, they match up good. Bam should just destroy Indiana. I mean, they're really weak with guys super athletic guys like Bam. Yeah, I love them both. They're both like 1K cheaper than they should be, which there's a lot of guys on the slate that are too cheap, but they definitely are, and they're going to get big minutes increases in the playoffs. You got to think they'll be, as long as the game doesn't blow out, they're going to play high 30s in minutes. And they're great plays. And Dragic, Dragic is going to be maybe the highest owned guy on the slate just because he's just too cheap. I mean, he's 2K too cheap, maybe even on a slate like this. So the weird part about Miami is like none is priced up, and Olynyk is, I guess Olynyk's not super priced up, but a few of those guys, Tyler Hero's too expensive. It's weird why a few of those guys got priced up and the other ones didn't. I don't think I'll play Duncan Robinson just because it comes down to shooting, but I mean, he's cheap too if you needed a guy. My problem with Duncan Robinson is I would rather play Jimmy, Bam, and Dragic, and it's tough to play more than 3 guys from a team on this slate. So I don't know. Crowder's fine too if you needed value, but for me, I think it's just those 3, which I think they might be honestly the 3 best plays on the slate overall, just pure point per dollar, good play types. I think they might be the top 3 plays. And then you look at Indiana, I don't like it as much. Oladipo doesn't look right to me. I watched a lot of the Indiana games. He just doesn't look right. Miles Turner's too expensive. I mean, I don't know how you could pay $7,200 for Miles Turner. Like, no way. Yeah. TJ Warren's too expensive. Aaron Holiday is Aaron Holiday, so I'm not paying $42 for him. Brogdon would really be the only guy I would even consider, and I do like Brogdon, though. On like a mid-tier build where you're playing Jimmy and Bam and Dragic, I think you can run it back with Brogdon and kind of get off that star build. All these guys could get you 50. Like, Brogdon could get you 50. The Heat guys could get you 50. I mean, Dragic could get you a good number too, probably not 50, but he could get you a good number. Brogdon's going to get a minute increase too. I wouldn't be shocked if Brogdon played 40 minutes today in this spot. So, yeah, I think this game's super cut and dry for me, though. Not like the first game. I'm really only going to play the one Indiana guy and the 3 Miami guys.
Yeah, I think for me, I would be looking more at I love Dragic. I think I would be looking at these other guys like Crowder and Iggy at their cheap price tags because, one, I think Indiana they're going to kind of play smaller because they don't have Sabonis. So it kind of sets up more for Crowder to play, a little more minutes and Iggy to come in and him see his 28 to maybe he gets 30 minutes. I don't know. But I like guys who, Duncan Robinson's fine, but I would prefer the cheaper, a little cheaper with those two guys. And they do a little bit more than just shoot. Like Jay Crowder is a lot of shooter, but he can get rebounds and, at times. And Iggy can rack up some assists. He can get some rebounds. He can do a little of everything where at 33, what is he, 3,300 on DraftKings? Yeah. Like, I can't not look at him, even though he's someone who normally he's like a little higher. Just a little higher where I just don't play him. But at 3,300, 28 minutes, I'll take 28 minutes at 3,300.
If you told me he's playing 28 minutes, I'm playing him. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, I just think none doesn't look right. I don't think he sees big minutes. I think Iggy is like the backup point guard. I think they like to use him with the backup because Dragic is no longer like he's starting right now. So I like him with the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I mean, he fits good. I still haven't rolled. I know you guys laughed at it, but that 3-star build, if you play guys like Iggy, you can do it, and it's going to be way different. But it probably won't win, I'm sure. It's just too much downside with these cheap guys. But, yeah, he would fit on a build
you would need a lot to go right for that build to go off.
You would need a lot.
Like, you would need Jimmy, Bam, Chris Paul, all these, like, mid-tier guys. You'd kind of need them to fail, right?
Or the stars just all go for 80, which they could, like Harden and Giannis. And all of a sudden, if Harden and Giannis and one other go for 80, you're not going to matter what the mid-tier does.
I mean, we saw it with Mitchell yesterday. You think, like, okay, the guy
it goes both ways 30, for sure. Like, the mid-range can go off too.
But here's the thing, like, you think, like, okay, the guy has like 25 or 30 at half, whatever he had. Like, he went nuts in the second quarter. And you're like, okay, they're going to force the ball out of his hands and make guys like Ingles and O'Neal and Gobert and, all these other guys, Clarkson, beat them. And they just didn't. So, I mean, I could totally see, all three of these guys getting 70 plus. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if one of the Lakers and then Giannis and Harden get 70. Like, that wouldn't shock me at all. So Indiana side, I know we touched on it a little. Tony says, it's kind of Brogdon and that's pretty much it. Who talked about TJ Warren's a little cheap price tag on FanDuel, I think. Is there anyone else that we're looking at?
How much is TJ Warren on FanDuel?
He's 7,500.
75.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm with you guys. I think TJ Warren on FanDuel is in play. I think Malcolm Brogdon is the one pacer that I would prefer if I was bringing it back with someone. But that's pretty much it. So I think we can move on to, in my opinion, the most exciting game of the day, OKC versus Houston. Houston's without Russell Westbrook, so that's, obviously big. Everybody knows, Westbrook's out. James Harden is just – James Harden's an easy play, any slate. It doesn't matter if Westbrook's in, really, but – Westbrook's out. Harden's going to get, all the usage now. And he's an easy play. Like, I can't just sit here and be like, oh, yeah, fade Harden. Like, in tournaments. Like, I don't think that's just the easy answer. I don't think you just fade him. I would not fade him today in this matchup. Tony, I'm going to start with you on this one. What are you doing with James Harden?
Yeah, it's definitely not a simple question because he's clearly 1,000,000% the best play, the highest upside, the easiest play. And I probably will just play him, honestly. Like, it's tough not to do it. The only way you could say to talk yourself out is just game theory and the fact that OKC does have good defenders that they can throw a bunch of stuff at him and just make the ball. We've seen teams do this to Harden, And it has slowed them down at times where they just make other guys beat them. They just say, we're going to throw 2 and 3 guys at James, and we're just going to make these other guys hit open shots. And, I mean, there is a path to that, especially with Shea and Chris Paul having the ability to play as good a defense as you could on Harden. Again, he's the best play on the slate. No one would disagree with that. He's got the highest upside, the highest floor, the best play. I'm just making a case because there is a lot of stars on this slate. If you do fade him and somehow he does bust, like it's a blowout or whatever happens, he just misses a bunch of shots and he gets 50. Like if he gets 50 tonight, you can beat him. Again, I'm just making a case against it. Everyone knows he's the best play.
Or Tony, like if your studs just equal him, right? Like if you play Giannis and LeBron, let's say, and they both get 70 and Harden gets 70 or even like 73, like you're fine, right? Like you had 2 studs go off and they pretty much equaled Harden both. So, I mean, you could also have that happen. And like Tony said, if he gets 50 or 60, so if he gets 10 points less, you'd be sitting pretty, right?
The problem is he's probably going to get like 80, and it's just it is a tough fade. Like you're not going to feel good about the fade at all. Man, I don't know. Like I'm probably just going to play him on all my teams, just make it easy. He's going to be the highest owned too, so there's not really a ton of risk anyways. Just kind of just eliminate the spot. If he goes off, you're with the field. Sure, if he busts, you might still even be able. I mean, if he busts, what's he going to get, 50? You still might have a chance to do it. And the hard part is he's going to play 42 minutes. Like he's going to play. I think you just play him. But if you wanted to get courageous, there are other stars on the slate.
Can I just say James Harden was literally forcing his coach to play him this whole bubble pretty much. Like every game, his coach was probably like, "Hey, maybe you want to rest. Maybe you want to rest James." And James was like, "Nope, I want to, get more chemistry, or I want to get my legs under me more." Or, that last game where he came out in the third quarter and ended up playing, and they said,
super tilting.
They're gonna play 6 minutes in the third quarter, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I wonder how they got that." And then it came out like James Harden was like, "Oh, I want to get better chemistry with Eric Gordon," because Eric Gordon's been out for a while. This guy's gonna play 40 plus minutes in a close game, guaranteed. It's going to be tough to hold him off for more than 2 to 3 minutes at a time when they take him out, the 2 times they take him out. So it's going to be really hard to fade him. But Hoop, let's bring it to you. I mean, we know James Harden is a cash lock.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in tournaments though, do you have any other take, or are you kind of with Tony where, he's a great play and, you want to be with the field, or overweight with him?
It's just, I mean, for me, it's just lock him in. I mean, more times than not, he's going to be the highest scorer on the slate. I mean, there's just the floor to me is like the realistic floor. Obviously, if there is a blowout or, gets injured, the floor is much lower. But to me, like the floor is like 60 in the spot with 80 fantasy point upside. Like, just give me that and move on, figure out the rest. That's the approach I would be taking in tournaments today. Maybe your opponents overthink it and the ownership comes down, which isn't likely. I mean, he's going to be highly owned. There's no way around it. To me, it's a lock button, play. You play him, you move on. It's just not fun to fade a guy that could literally approach like triple digits in fantasy points in a close game. So, obviously I'm always the chalkier type guy, but it's a lock button play for me. In terms of the other pieces on Houston and in this game, Russell Westbrook's out, and Harden obviously we love, but there's going to be a couple other Rockets guys that have big games here. The problem is on DraftKings, they've gone ahead and priced all those guys up, so it makes it tough. Let me just pull this up real quick. Like Macklemore's up there a little bit. Rivers is up there. House is up there. I mean, they adjusted the prices. On FanDuel, they didn't. So like PJ Tucker, center eligible, 3.7K. I think he is in play. Daniel House is only 4K on FanDuel. He is a very, very strong play to me. Macklemore is 3.7 on FanDuel. So to me, all those guys are in play more so on FanDuel than DraftKings. let me just go ahead and kind of look at those prices on DK. So we have House at 5.7 on DK, not a good price tag. Eric Gordon's 5.5, Austin Rivers 5.3, Macklemore 4.6. PJ Tucker is 4.1 on DK, so he'd probably be my second favorite on DraftKings. But most of these guys are going to be more FanDuel plays than DraftKings just because of those price tags. And then on the Thunder side, another guy that has a really good FanDuel price tag is Chris Paul at 7.2, which I really, really like. I mean, we're going to be playing James Harden. We're going to be playing Rockets guys. Chris Paul in the playoffs, the minutes should come up. I think he's a really strong play. Gallinari is another guy I like. On FanDuel, he's only 5.2K. And, maybe people look at what he did in the bubble and in the low minutes and get scared and don't play him. Have to imagine, he can go close to 30 minutes in this game in a really, really good spot. They need guys that can score, and he can score. So I like him. My least favorite is SGA, Gilgeous-Alexander. Like, I don't know. Like, he irritates the shit out of me when I roster him. So maybe it's a little bit of a bias, but I like those other guys a little bit more. And then the last piece, Steven Adams, 5.4K on FanDuel, center eligible. He should be able to absolutely dominate, and PJ Tucker is going to be guarding him. So I think he is a strong play as well. So I guess I agree with you guys. My favorite game here on this slate, going to have a lot of exposure to these guys, more so on FanDuel just because of the price tags. But yeah, solid game overall for fantasy here.
Yeah. And, I'm with you. I really like this game. James Harden, to me, I'm with you. I think he's a lock as well, pretty much. But the OKC players, I really hope Gallinari gets overlooked. And the other guy who I really like today, and I'm really sure I think he gets overlooked, is Dennis Schroeder. He had, obviously the one game where they let him run out, and they really just he needed to get his legs back under him. He needed to run a little, make sure he was in decent condition. This is the perfect matchup where they can play all three of these guards on the same floor whenever they want to and move Gallo to the 4 or even the 5 really against the Rockets if they wanted to. I mean, like Gallo 6'10" or whatever, he, against PJ Tucker, he could easily, guard PJ Tucker. So I think this is a game where you see all three of these guards play 33 to 30. I mean, some of these guards will play, like Chris Paul will probably play 37 minutes, 38 minutes in a close game. But I think Schroeder gets close to 33 to 35 minutes. And I would take him at the price discount over SGA. SGA hasn't looked great in the bubble. And Schroeder's just he is a hooper. Defensively, he's not that great. But let's be honest, this is not a defensive game. This is going to be a back and forth. They're going to want Schroeder in there to push the ball and kind of match, I think, pace with the Rockets. And I think Schroeder's perfect for this matchup. I love him today. I think he scores over 20 real points. I think Gallo's another one where he could have a big game too. I can't see how they don't give him over 30 minutes. I feel like the bubble minutes was just precautionary. But Tony, let's bring it to you. What are you thinking on this OKC side? Who are your favorite plays from their side?
Yeah, I'm all for the Schroeder call, except for the part where you said he's going to guard PJ Tucker. I don't know about that, but I like the call. And I don't know. So, all these guys, they do feel overpriced a little bit. Really, the only guys I like are Chris Paul and Schroeder. I like the Schroeder call a lot. He's a perfect matchup on offense for Houston. Get to the hole, what he does. He doesn't like settling for shots. Get to the rim. There's no rim protection. I like that, and he's going to be very, very low owned. So that's a classic JSU type play where he could be the guy that really – and they need his offense too. Shea, no matter what you say about him, he's not an offensive wizard by any means. So I love the Schroeder call. Chris Paul, I mean, you can't say it's funny enough that Houston trades – Chris Paul for Russ to get more stability and not worry about the injury. And then Russ comes into the series injured and CP3's healthy. That's just so ironic. And Chris Paul wants to beat their ass. He wants a title shot at this freaking Houston team. So I love the run back. I mean, CP3 and Schroeder with Harden, and then on FanDuel. So I talked about power forward. Jeff Green on FanDuel at 4,100 at power forward sticks off the page at me. He's 5,200 on DK, so he's not even in play on DK. But on FanDuel, the guy's going to play 30 minutes and shoot wide open threes all night. 4,100 at a weak position, like that is easily my favorite play, and it lets you fit stars at other spots. I love Jeff Green on FanDuel, but the pricing on DK, like Hoop said, is just insane. I mean, you can't play any of these guys because they're all way too expensive compared to the other games. You could play Bob Covington. You can definitely play at 6,500. He's going to play 40 minutes, but the rest of them on DK are out of play for me. FanDuel, I think they're all in play, honestly. Like, they're all way too cheap. PJ Tucker even under 4K on there. Jeff Green, like I said, all those guys are too cheap, except Covington. So I think it's the opposite. And this is what, like, I can't pay 7K for Covington on FanDuel. That's just too expensive. Especially when you can play Jeff Green for 4,100. How could you play Covington over Green? It just doesn't make sense when you need salary. So I think it's slate dependent more so than ever in this game, who you're playing, but the prices kind of point you in that direction. And yeah, those are the guys I like.
Yeah. And, I would agree with you, Jeff Green on FanDuel. It just looks kind of like such a cheap price tag. It's such a weak position and we need salary. So he makes a ton of sense. The other guy, Eric Gordon at 4,500. You guys talked about him on DK being like, he's probably a stay away at 5,500 on DK. But on FanDuel at 4,500, what I hope happens is people take the discount with Daniel House at 4K. And so it kind of spreads out their ownership a little because 4,500 for Eric Gordon, I think he still has some upside. I'll take the upside of Eric Gordon over Daniel House and hope he gets lower ownership at just a little more. 500 more on FanDuel? So I'll take that on FanDuel for tournaments as a pivot. And
it is weird that it's literally the opposite on FanDuel. Like, I think Covington on DK and everyone else on FanDuel, but not Covington. It's weird.
Is Eric Gordon out?
No, he's not out.
Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Gordon is out.
Oh, Aaron Gordon. Okay, I got confused. I saw it in the chat. All right.
We should probably circle back at the end and just look now that we know he's out because there might be some more value now. But the chat we need to talk about it. The chat keeps talking about Bazley. Bazley's a perfect example to me of a guy that was doing good in the bubble when guys were out and not getting minutes. But Schroeder's back now. Gallo's going to get more run. Like, do not play Bazley on this slate. Like, he might literally be the worst play on the entire slate. Honestly, like, he could be the worst play because he was really good in the bubble. But it's not coming today, I promise you, unless there's just crazy foul trouble or something.
Can I say I think – first of all, I agree with you. I think it's terrible at the price. He's obviously priced up from playing really well with all these guys out. Gallo's going to see more minutes. Schroeder's back. That directly affects him for sure. Maybe they're saying this also, though, because they think, Steven Adams isn't a great matchup. So maybe he steals some minutes that Steven Adams would take. But I still think that with Schroeder back and Gallo getting normal, like actual real run, it just takes Bazley out of the equation for me. Like, he's a stay away. If I was making 150, I don't think I would play him.
No,
even though I
wouldn't play a single one.
Yeah.
They're using TLC as an example. That is not even remotely the same thing. TLC was still going to get run. Like, the Nets play a bunch of guys. He gets looks. I still don't think TLC was a great play yesterday, but he still gets run. Like, Bazley is not the same as TLC.
Yeah, I would agree. TLC was
and his price really is the main too. Guy.
Yeah,
it's not like he's cheap. Like, if
he's a terrible play. Like, I'll stand by that. If you guys make fun of me tomorrow on the show and he goes off, I'll take my L. But he is definitely one of the worst plays on the slate.
If Bazley was minimum price, would you play him?
I still probably wouldn't. I don't think he's a good play today, like, at all. I just don't. Like,
yeah.
If he was, but it is different. If he was mid-priced, I would definitely think about him.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I agree with you. If he was mid-priced, it would be a different conversation, though, because he'd be able to get us more studs in our lineup, so it would make more sense.
I mean, he's 4,500 on Draftkings. Like, you might as well just rip your money up and burn it. Like, there's no way.
So on FanDuel, I'm going to give it. Would you take? He's the same price as Melo. I'd take Melo. He's more
not
expensive
even close either. Like Melo is infinitely better.
Yeah, he's more expensive than Fournier by 100. I'd take Fournier. He's more expensive than Gallo. I'd take Gallo. Eric Gordon. I'd take Eric Gordon. Jay
You've already
Crowder,
proven the point.
honestly,
Like literally everybody's a better play than him.
Yeah,
like everybody. You could make 1,000 teams and I wouldn't play a Baisley. Like that's how bad of a play.
He should be 0% owned. I mean, that range is like loaded too. You just named like 3 guys that are solid plays, and Fournier just got a boost right there with Aaron Gordon being ruled out. Yeah. So yeah, I can't imagine playing Baisley.
Do you guys want to circle back with Aaron Gordon being out? Because
you need to circle back to these like buttons first. You need to give your speech. I mean, we got 500 people watching.
Well, we got good news. We have good news and bad news. The good news is we have about over 500 people, about 520 people watching. The bad news is that requires I'm going to say 300 likes to get some gear.
Oh, the halfway. We always require halfway.
All right, 250. Yeah. 250.
250 is fair, but guys, come on. There's 518 people watching right now live, and we can't get to 250. We're at 144, 150 now. Come on. We need to get those likes up. I mean, I got to see
the gear's been going out. I'm due for a FedEx run.
I mean, before we even get to this last game, I want to see somewhere near 200. We can't even get to this last game until we get somewhere near 200. I'll talk about Big D and Big D until I get to 200. Big D. I don't even care. Whoever else, Todd and whoever else is in the chat, hanging out, listening to all our takes. Thank you. Thank you for giving us likes, whether they're thumbs up or thumbs down. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what do we do until we get to 200, guys? I mean, this is a classic case where I want to give out swag, but I just can't do it if we got a bunch of haters in the chat, and they don't want to hit the like button. We need those likes. This is free. We're at 190.
They're working it up for us to get back to that Orlando game.
See, we're getting there. See, I knew this would happen. We just need to pump them up a little. It's like the crowd. We got to pump them up.
WV Hills, your gear.
Right.
I said that you're on that next list. I'm going to FedEx probably, let's say Friday. I'm going to plan on going to FedEx on Friday, and all that next list. I got about 15 or 20 people that need to get their gear from the last shipment. So Friday. So if you win today, it's going to be gear time on Friday, more than likely. Maybe Monday, if not Friday.
Yeah. My man Jay Reed in the chat says the S in JSU is for swag. Damn right. Damn right it is. JSU wants to give out swag. I'm going to give out, I'm going to be real generous.
Yeah, Travis.
Too.
I see you, Travis. You're going to wear that RPS gear when the Blazers beat the Lakers. That's right, Travis. You might be the winner. I might send you one just for that comment, Travis.
See, we need those comments. I'm a Laker hater too, so I'm totally in on this. Lakers are terrible right now, and I'll take anyone over them. Give me the Blazers too at plus money.
Let's go.
Plus 400. We're getting them plus 400.
I would never bet the Lakers at what are the Lakers at right now, Tony? What
minus five freaking hundred.
No
it's minus 500 plus 400. It's egregious.
If someone said to me, JSU, your take's egregious, Portland's not going to win, whatever, that's fine. You can say that, but no way I would ever bet on the Lakers the way they're playing right now. No way.
No.
But let's circle back, guys. Let's go. So let's go bring it back to the Orlando game. Aaron Gordon's out. This definitely helps, some players out. Hoop talked about Fournier. Hoop, I'm going to bring it to you first from a cash side now. Does this make you feel a little more comfortable about anyone else besides Fultz?
Fournier on DK because the price is cheap. I think he is 4.7. On FanDuel, I think I still prefer Gallo. I still prefer Carmelo over him at that same price range. I actually like Carmelo a lot. We haven't got there yet, but I do like Carmelo here today. On DK, we talked about the stars and scrubs and all that, and how that we don't feel great about the scrubs, but it brings a couple guys into play a little bit more. The first guy would be Ennis at 3.4K. I think he's a guy we can consider. MCW ruled out too. I mean, I think we kind of knew that, but gives Augustine a little bit more boost with Gordon out too. Wesawundu, he's 3.2K. These aren't value plays that you're looking to get 25, 30 fantasy points from. It's value plays that you're looking to get 20 fantasy points from and get that extra star that goes for 70 potentially. So it still doesn't give us the slam dunk elite 3K guy that we want, but the odds of those guys getting to 20 has increased a little bit with Aaron Gordon out. That's more so DJ Augustine, James Ennis, Wesawundu, maybe even Kem Birch, another guy we can consider. But those guys are in the mix. You need the stars to go big, I think, if you do play those guys.
Yeah, you mentioned Kem Birch. I think one spot where he would be somewhat in play if you were making multiple lineups is on FanDuel, where he's 3,800. He's power forward eligible on FanDuel. So if you just wanted someone, he's going to come in really low owned. And if you needed someone cheap and you didn't want to play Jeff Green, let's say you already had, 5 guys from that game and you didn't want to play 6 and you wanted to play someone else that was cheap at power forward, Kem Birch would be a guy I would look at. I wouldn't play him if you only were playing one team or even 3. But if you got in past 3, I wouldn't mind throwing in some Kem Birch. From the Orlando side, I'm with Hoop. It kind of makes DJ a little better play for me. I already like DJ at his price on DraftKings, but it makes me feel a little more comfortable, even though it's tough to feel comfortable about any of these guys going up against the Bucks. Honestly, this is a real tough defensive team, but they're so cheap. Tony, let's bring it to you. What are you looking at now that Aaron Gordon's ruled out? Anything pop off the page? Terrence Ross in tournaments? Anything?
So the first thing that pops out for me is blowout. So, I mean, I don't see how Orlando doesn't get blown out in this game. I know the spread's already big, like 12, 13 points, but I mean, it makes it harder for me to play Giannis on a slate where we have really good mid-tier, where we have really good stars. I just, like, if I'm only giving him 30 minutes, yeah, he's still got a massive floor, but it makes it really hard to trust him to hit that ceiling, which I want as a tournament player. I want that 80-point ceiling. I don't see him getting 80-point ceiling with what's going on here. But just to circle back, I mean, in a blowout, yeah, like DJ Augustine, 3,500, Ennis, 3,400, Iwandu, 3,200, Kem Birch, especially on FanDuel, like JSU said. All these guys are in play for me now. It just depends on your roster construction. If you want those stars, you have to trust these guys to get you 25 fantasy points or something, I think. Like if DJ Augustine gets you 25 and James Ennis gets you 23 for these prices, they're going to be in really good shape, I think. And honestly, they almost have to get in the 20s, right? Like this team doesn't have that many guys. So even if it turns into a blowout, I don't know. Like these dudes, like I wouldn't play Vooch or Fournier just because of the price. But these other guys are so cheap and they're going to play minutes. So they almost have to get in the 20s for you. I think they are pretty good plays.
Yeah, I mean, James Ennis. I guess the question is, Tony, they're good plays, yes. Now, are you playing them standalone without Giannis? Just saying, like, I think the game blows out, but I
don't think they have to be with Giannis.
So, would you play them together? Is what I'm saying. Like the two value guys that you listed, would you play two Orlando values together without Giannis?
If it gets me the stars, yeah. Like if it was to get me, say, I mean, I don't have the exact pricing up, but say it gets me LeBron and 2 other like really good top tier players. Like I would do it if it got me that. But the biggest issue for me is going to come down to the Miami situation where we got Jimmy and Bam both way too cheap. I don't know. It's just roster construction, but I think you can play 2 Orlando guys together.
All right, that's fair. I mean, that's kind of my take. I think DJ Augustine is the guy I'm looking at now for tournaments. But I'm with Tony, though. It just screams blowout. It really does.
DJ's a good play either way, though. If it doesn't blow out, he should get run. If it blows out, he should get run.
He'll see it's like 25 minutes, right? Like,
And 3,500, he almost has to get there. I mean, he just almost has to. He could literally get you like 40. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he got 40.
the majority of the time when he's on the court, like he's going to be by far their best chance of scoring the basketball. I mean, they just they don't have scorers, and he'll be chucking. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, he controls the ball when he's on the floor. That's for sure. Yeah. Like,
honestly, what's his floor? Like, what do we give him as his floor?
15.
Yeah, which isn't going to kill you, right? Like, it's not going to end your day. No. That's Royce O'Neal yesterday.
If you're playing those guys, it's all about it's not necessarily what they do. It's about what the stars do. You know, if you're playing these cheap dudes to get the stars and scrubs build, I mean, the stars can make up for the 5 fantasy. If he only gets 15 and we kind of want him at 20, 21, that's one possession for some of these stars. That's a steal and a 3 for James Harden. You know, it's just you got to look at it beyond just that one play.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. All right, I think we've hit on that. Let's move on to the final game of the slate. And guys, come on, we need about 18 or 19 more likes to hit that 250. Let's hit that thumbs up.
And the one other thing, sorry, on that game, not to cut you off, but one other thing on that game, the other thing to consider, the Bucks are playing some fast basketball, very fast pace, and that is also a boost to those cheap Magic guys.
The more we talk about it, the more I'm liking these Orlando guys. They're so cheap.
I think we just talked each other into it now.
They're just so cheap, and they have to play minutes. I know the matchup sucks. They just have to play, though. There's not enough dudes.
Oop is right, though. They have been playing very fast, especially in the bubble. Like, I mean, they were playing pretty fast, and
they still give up a bunch of threes. Like, even as good as their defense is, they want you to. I'm talking myself into it for sure. It's a matter that we haven't built a ton of teams, so the roster construction isn't set. But if it somehow gets me 3 stars, I'd be okay playing 2 of these guys for sure.
You definitely want guys who can shoot, though. I will say that. You want guys who can hit the 3 because they're going to challenge shots at the rim. It's going to be tough to drive on this team. So, you want guys who can shoot. But let's move on. We got the Portland Trailblazers versus the LA Lakers. Trailblazers have been hot in the bubble, but they're a team who, like always, they play no defense. And they just run and they score. And, the Lakers are kind of, at least before the bubble anyways, they're kind of like that team who they kind of slow the pace a little. They kind of get good shots. And what happens? Does the Lakers defense turn up and slow Portland down? Or does the Lakers end up trying to speed up to match Portland's pace? I think that is a huge thing with this series. If Portland can dictate the pace, then the Lakers are in big trouble. Tony, I'll bring it to you first. I know you think the Lakers are already in big trouble. From a fantasy side, though, what are you liking from this Portland team that all these guys are going to see 38 to 40 minutes, at least the starters, but they're priced up outside of Melo. They're all priced up.
Yeah, so that's where it gets interesting because, man, Dame, I love Dame. Dame's going to have a big series. But, God, he's 11,400 on DraftKings. I'm all for it. If you play Dame over Harden somehow and you have the balls to do that and he outscores Harden, you deserve to win because, Dame's great. Don't get me wrong. But, man, he's not 11,400. That's just that's a tough price point. And, honestly, Nurkic is priced tough. I love Portland in this series, but these prices, I can't play any of them. It's just that simple. And I love the matchup. The Lakers are not going to try to run and gun with this team. They're going to slow the pace down. They have to. Even LeBron's quotes were, we need to slow the pace. They want to run and gun. We don't want to do that. At these prices, I almost like it for fantasy-wise because it's the late game. People are going to look at it because it's Portland Lakers. And I think, honestly, it's a super easy fade from the Portland side. It's just the prices are crazy. On FanDuel, it might be a little – what's the FanDuel pricing look like?
So on FanDuel, some of these guys like CJ McCollum is a little cheaper, 7,400. Gary Trent Jr. is 4,500. Melo is 5,400. Dame's expensive.
I think Gallo's a better play than Melo, though. I don't know. McCollum – Dame is a little more playable just because you need 2 point guards. He's only 10K. I definitely like him more on FanDuel. Nurkic. I like them all better on FanDuel, but DK, I think they're super easy fades. And the opposite, though, can be said. So this just shows you how different betting and DFS can be because I love Portland in the series. But you look at these Lakers prices, and it's the opposite. You got LeBron and AD are both cheaper than Dame, and they're both better plays, I think. But then you got these other guys are all 3K. You got JaVale, who's going to play against bigs, is 3,100. He's going to play. He has to. If he plays 18 minutes, he's going to hit his price tag at 3K. You got Danny Green is 3,200, who's going to get a minutes boost in the playoffs. He's just going to. He's going to be asked to guard these guys. You got Dwight Howard, 3,700, is going to get minutes. These prices, and then you got Kuzma, 64, who's the opposite. Like, you can't pay 64 for Kuzma, but these min-priced guys can fit. That's why I said everyone was laughing at the beginning when I said 3 stars and then a bunch of scrubs, but you can honestly play JaVale and Danny Green on the same team. They're min-price. They're going to get minutes. I know it's not going to be a conventional build, but if I play Giannis and Harden and AD, and all I have to do is play JaVale and one of our Orlando guys, DJ Augustine and Danny Green, I think that build can win today if the Stars go for 80, which they could.
Please play Dwight Howard over JaVale McGee.
Like, I always play JaVale over him, and you always play Dwight.
Please, I know. So to me, it's
I
just
see
like
3,100 and starting, and he's so athletic. Like, it's crazy.
To me, though, I just see Dwight Howard, and even if I have to pay 600 more, I just see a little more upside. Like, yeah, there's
with that 3 stars build, though, you might not have that 600. It's thin pickings at the bottom.
That's true. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're going the 3 stars build, I guess JaVale makes a little more sense.
Like, you literally have like 3,400 or something per spot.
But let's just say straight up, like, if forget about lineup construction for a sec, would you take Dwight Howard over JaVale if you had the money?
I mean, I still think I like JaVale more. I always like him more than you. He just starts. If he gets going early, like with those cuts to the rim, dunks, blocks, I don't know. Like, I like JaVale more, but I get your point too.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just I think Dwight Howard, even in 18 minutes, like that's probably what he's going to get, right? But JaVale's not going to get more than 18 minutes.
They're both going to play the same amount of minutes.
So to me, it's like who's a better fantasy producer, and I just think Dwight Howard's a better fantasy producer than JaVale. That's what it comes down to. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that these Lakers guys that are super cheap, like Danny Green, even KCP, is going to get minutes. And I'm not a big fan of Danny Green or KCP. I don't think I've played them once this entire season for fantasy.
They're going to get a minutes boost for sure, though.
They're going to see 30 minutes. There's no Avery Bradley. I mean, their guard position is weak. I think Kuzma will play decent minutes too, which may affect them a little bit. But still, they're going to need to play 25 to 32 minutes, I think. And at their prices, I think they're playable. For the Stars, I mean, it's AD and LeBron. I think both are in great spots. I like them both. Even if they're quoting saying like, oh, we're going to slow the pace down, they can try and slow the pace down. That's fine. But like easier said than done when you got Portland. If Portland runs out to a quick lead, I mean, like it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to slow the pace down, honestly, against Portland. They just keep pushing and keep pushing. But Hoop, let's bring it to you. What are you thinking about these Lakers studs, and then talk about the Portland guys?
Yeah, so, I mean, I agree with what Tony said there in regards to the Trailblazers. Like, I wanted to be on some of these guys, but, man, they just got – all right.